Starring in over 20 different games, Kirby is probably one of Nintendo's more unique properties, considering how varied Kirby games are in terms of gameplay and design. Even though most games starring Kirby are introductory platformers and are meant for younger audiences, they possess a certain charm as well as solid gameplay elements that make them fun for all ages. But what is the best Kirby game? How do you judge a series that is so varied? Well, I figured the easiest way to find out which Kirby is the quote-unquote best was to see which is the highest rated. And lo and behold, according to game rankings, Kirby's Epic Yarn is the highest rated Kirby game. But is Kirby's Epic Yarn the pinnacle of the pink protagonist's adventures, or are people blinded by this game's charm? So the story of Epic Yarn is that Kirby is sucked into Patchland after he tries to eat a tomato belonging to the sorcerer Yin Yarn. Once Kirby awakens in Patchland, he discovers that he's been turned into Yarn and has lost all of his previous powers. He also meets Prince Fluff, who explains that Patchland has been torn apart by Yin Yarn, and in order to restitch Patchland together, they need to collect several strands of magic yarn. Well, long story short, Kirby and Prince Fluff are able to collect all the strands of magic yarn and defeat Yin Yarn, once again saving the day. On first look, you'll realize that Kirby's Epic Yarn is not your traditional Kirby game, in more ways than one. As a matter of fact, Prince Fluff was originally supposed to be the main protagonist. However, once Nintendo saw the game, they suggested that Kirby should instead be the lead, with Prince Fluff being his partner. With that in mind, it's easy to see why this game is so different from other Kirby games. For starters, Kirby's moves and abilities are completely different than in any other Kirby game. Instead of his trademark swallowing, copy, or flying abilities, Kirby is able to defeat enemies with his Yarn Whip attack, where he can either tear enemies to shreds or spin them up into a ball, which he can then throw at other enemies. Kirby can also turn into a car, which is used for dashing around, a weight that can be used to smash blocks underneath him, and a parachute which he can use in order to slow his ascent when falling. Besides his regular abilities, in certain stages, Kirby can also hop into and transform into different vehicles with various abilities. Second, stylistically, Epic Yarn looks completely different from any other game. If you didn't seem to notice, which how could you not, everything in this game is made of cloth and yarn. As a matter of fact, the graphics were created by using digital photographs of fabric, which were then placed under polygons to properly replicate the look of different cloth and textiles. Because of the stylistic choice of the game, everything is just so goddamn adorable. The enemies, Kirby, the stages, everything just blends so nicely together to create something that's so cute your eyes will bleed rainbows. However, the level design isn't all cottony cuteness, as like in Rayman Origins, sometimes the background and environment blend too well together. Since everything is made of cloth, it can be difficult to figure out what exactly in a level is a hazard and what isn't. Not only that, but when Kirby hits something that hurts him, there's not really any force feedback. You just kinda run into it like you would a wall and bounce off it. It also doesn't help that running into some enemies does absolutely nothing, yet running into others causes you to drop half your gems. It's a little strange considering that in most games, touching any enemy hurts you. This kinda leads into another problem though, and that there are no lives and Kirby has no health. Basically, whenever you get hit or fall into a pit, you lose half of the gems you have collected. Of course, you still have the opportunity to pick up the gems you lost, so in most cases it's not that big of an issue. But don't worry, even if you have 0 gems left, it still doesn't matter, as you can still complete the stage. So what's the purpose of the gems then? Well, if you collect a certain number of gems in a stage, then you'll get a bronze, silver, or gold medal, plus the gems you collected will be added to your total. These gems can then be used to buy furniture and wallpaper for your house. Oh yeah, by the way, you have a little house where you can place the furniture you find in the levels. The house serves no purpose, but I suppose for a little kid it can provide minutes of entertainment. So yeah, ultimately, unless you actually care about getting a gold in every level and unlocking furniture for your house, the gems are useless. Now I'm not too fond of this mechanic for several reasons. For one, collecting gems is a bit of a pain in the ass. In most levels, there will usually be enough gems you can collect, and if you don't get hurt, you'll be able to get a gold on the level without any problems. However, in the levels where you transform into a vehicle, more specifically the truck and surfboard levels, it can be difficult to find enough gems, considering that there's a specific path that has the most gems along it, and if you don't go that way, you won't have enough gems to get a gold. Next, the fact that the gems are ultimately worthless is a little discouraging. Sure, you can buy little wallpapers and other pieces of furniture, but honestly, who the fuck cares? Do you really care about buying that little King DDD doll and putting it in your house? Probably not. I can't even see a little kid wanting to spend more than a few minutes decorating their house either. The only reason as to why you'd even want to consider buying this stuff is to get 100% game completion, because apparently having all the furniture is a requirement for completely beating the game. But if you don't care about gems and just want to beat a level, you can pretty much just plow through the level without any consequences, since there's no way for you to die. Personally, I'd rather have a life bar instead. At least it would be more of a challenge that way, considering that you'd have to avoid getting hurt. But at the very least, for this game, I feel like there should have been a minimum amount of gems needed to beat a level. It also doesn't help that this game is incredibly easy. Obviously, I'm not in the market that this game is targeted to, but I feel like young children might even find this game too easy. The game is just really forgiving by not giving Kirby any health or lives, and by making gem collecting not even crucial to beating a stage. The platforming segments themselves are also pretty easy and don't necessarily require any skill. The game also practically pushes you forward if you get left behind in side-scrolling segments, instead of killing you off or making you start over. Even the bosses aren't exactly challenging, as they're more tedious than difficult. They all pretty much function the same way, as you wait for them to shoot out an enemy or projectile at you, which you then proceed to launch back at them so you can grab the boss and fling them across the room. Then you do this 2 to 3 more times until the boss is defeated, and it's pretty much the same for every boss. It's just really annoying to have to wait around for them to shoot something at you so you can attack them. Plus, if you end up missing, then you have to wait a whole nother round until they launch more shit at you. The stages are also pretty small, so you'll most likely get hit in the process and have to spend time picking up all the gems you just dropped. The only time I was truly frustrated with the boss was when I fought King DDD. To start off, King DDD is being controlled like a puppet, and you have to tug on the cords to release him, and you can do this after you throw a star at him or after he charges at you and lands on his face, which is easy enough the first 2 times. Then all of a sudden I ran into a problem where I couldn't seem to reach one of the cords. I tried jumping and using the whip, I tried jumping on his back and then jumping again to try and reach it, but I kept barely missing it each time, and for the life of me I couldn't figure out what the hell to do. So finally, in pure frustration, I ground pound on his back, and lo and behold, the cord drops down so I could reach it. Now maybe it's obvious to some people that that's what you're supposed to do, but to me it seems pretty cheap. I mean, when you first start the battle, you can just grab the cords and tug on them without any issues, but all of a sudden halfway through they change the mechanics of the boss battle without any indication of doing so. I mean, I can still see the button I'm supposed to tug on, and the whip barely misses it, making it seem like it's possible to grab. I really don't know how I was supposed to know I had the ground pound DDD, considering there's no situation where this occurs outside this boss fight. A simple way to teach this skill would have been to include it in a previous level, so that way you're aware of the fact that you can grab hard to reach switches by turning into a weight and smashing into the ground. Control-wise, I feel that Kirby's new abilities don't really work out as well as his old ones. For one, the whip can be a little difficult to get used to. In most situations, you'll need to aim the whip right at the target, and sometimes it's hard to hit the target at the right angle, especially when you use it in midair. There's also the fact that sometimes it's difficult to judge whether or not the whip will be in range of your target, which can end up causing you to miss and fall into a pit. There's also a pretty large delay when using the whip, making it difficult to attack enemies in succession. Second, even though Kirby's car transformation works well and is really useful, I feel like the way it's executed could have been better. In order to turn into a car, you double tap the D-pad, however the Wiimote's D-pad is too mushy and doesn't always register the double tap, so you'll end up smashing the D-pad until it registers, and after a while your thumb will start to hurt. Now the Wiimote's shortcomings aren't Epic Yarn's fault, however I do feel that they could have just mapped the car function to the B button, seeing as how it isn't used at all, and it would be far easier to press and hold the button than to constantly double tap the D-pad. Finally, we come to Kirby's vehicle controls. Now Kirby can transform into 10 different vehicles, all of which have different control schemes. Most of them are pretty easy to use, but there are a few that are a bit frustrating. First, the train, which you control by drawing train tracks for Kirby to ride along by pointing the Wiimote at the screen and holding the A button to draw the tracks. Of course, doing this is next to impossible, considering that it's difficult to hold the Wiimote steady enough to draw the track. It also doesn't help that the screen doesn't move fast enough to allow you to draw the track in front of you, resulting in you creating a bunch of disjointed tracks. I mean, I'm an adult and I had difficulty trying to keep Kirby on the track. I can't imagine a 5-year-old child having the same level of coordination as me and being able to do this without becoming frustrated. Then there's the UFO, which you control just by moving the D-pad. Simple enough, right? Well, not really. You see, for some reason, the UFO just feels unstable as it carries a lot of momentum, making it difficult to slow down and move without crashing into something else. There's also the fact that for some reason, if you run into the walls, the UFO bounces off of them, which makes it even more difficult to stop and change directions. So what's the deal? Is Kirby's Epic Yarn Kirby's best outing? No, I don't think it is. No, I don't think this is a bad game. It's actually pretty fun and ridiculously adorable, but I just like Kirby's regular abilities better than ones in Epic Yarn. The whole gem collecting mechanic feels a bit shallow as well, as gems are really only a form of currency for lame in-game items that serve no purpose in the main game. There's also the fact that even for a Kirby game, this game is just way too forgiving and easy to the point where some parts begin to feel tedious. To me, this is just another game where the presentation is better than the execution.